Your weak back is restraining you from being stronger and more explosive and expressing your impulse as an athlete. We're gonna give you 11 exercises that are not only gonna strengthen your back, but they're gonna enhance that explosiveness, which in turn is gonna make you a better athlete. And we're gonna start right now. The first exercise to give you a more explosive back is going to be a banded to the rack safety squat bar good morning. And because that is a bit of a mouthful, this is actually referred to in our gym as the Colt extension, named after Colt Armstrong, who snatched 160 kilos, 159 in competition, clean and jerked 192 kilos. We would use this movement to strengthen his erectors and his upper back so that he could hold a little bit better posture in that front rack position. So if you're an athlete who tends to dump forward when you're doing a front squat, let's say you're a wrestler or a football player who tends to get swimmed quite a bit, this is gonna transfer really, really well. Now, what we're gonna do here with the Colt extension is as we're gonna get set, we're gonna see that the bands are attached here on that x-axis. They're gonna be on that plane that's gonna be a little bit more horizontal. I wanna get into this position where I have like a slightly rounded upper back, flexion in the knees, flexion in the hips. I come down, okay? Boom, and give me a little bit of that arch. And we would have weight on the ends as well. Here, come back, boom, 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 boom. And you're gonna start to feel this in the hamstrings and the back. And that's the big thing, is that we wanna think about big hip extension rapidly, feel that in the trunk, but most importantly, through the erectors into that upper back here. I even like to think about as explosive as possible. But how can the back actually affect athleticism and impulse? Back exercises are essential for developing that dynamic trunk control. Yes, the core and abs are impressive, but the back is where a lot of strength, a lot of impulse, a lot of explosiveness is going to lie. And if we look at the trunk as a full cylinder, that's gonna be that connection that's gonna help with the anterior sequence, a lot of strength, a lot of power coming out of our quads, as well as contributing to the strength of our posterior chain. And if we look at developing both the anterior and posterior aspect of our entire trunk, that's gonna lead us to that platinum club of that dynamic trunk control. But before we start discussing how we use the core to build that explosive back, I wanna talk about something that a lot of athletes neglect, and that's gonna be nutrition for recovery. It's not easy to get your daily recommended vitamins and minerals, but today's video sponsor, North American Herbs and Spice, is here to help. And we partnered with them to bring you the new and official Garage Strength Bundle. You've heard us talk about the positive attributes of liver and the positive effects that it can have on your overall recovery. Not only are you gonna get purely liver, but you're also gonna get Polar Power and Purely Min Magnesium Complex. Polar Power is gonna help increase that vitamin D levels, and also that Purely Min is gonna help with that cognition. So click the link down below for 15% off and get this sweet bundle. And before we get back to that next explosive exercise, I did just want to point out L-threonate is one of the best forms of magnesium, and you're going to get that in that Purely Min. Now, this next movement is one of my favorite exercises on the glue ham.
Okay, it's happening.
So we're going to do a banded evasion, and what this is going to look like. First of all, I just did a set before we got on air here, and my friggin' back is swolled up right now. Anyway, so we're going to get into this position. I'm going to put this around my shoulder here. Put this here like this, and I'm gonna come up, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we wanna do that 5 each side, control and way back down, and then pop that back up, control, explode, control, explode. This is really, really good for helping your back to be more dynamic and more explosive. Now, the next 2 movements are gonna be done explosively in 2 different manners. And what I wanna see here, boom, 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 boom. So that can be an explosive row, and it's like a bent over row in the glue ham. Now, we wanna squeeze at the top, and you can even add a little bit of a modality where you can hold that at the top, which is gonna get your lats and your lower back. The next one I'm gonna do is gonna be a little bit more dynamic, and I'm gonna start with this more at the top. So if I get set here, okay, I'm like this, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so now that's a little bit more explosive. So we can look at this and say, all right, with the barbell, go a little bit heavier, 5 sets of 7. With the explosive dumbbells, 6 sets of 4. And as we release, we want to catch and reverse very, very quickly. That's going to strengthen that lower back and that trunk control. It's going to transfer really, really well to sports where you might have somebody heavy on the head, like in combat sports, MMA, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, anything along those lines. Okay, this next exercise on the glute ham is gonna be a movement that's very, very dynamic. We have showed this one in the past. I like going here, boom, 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 boom. And you can start to add some really, really unique twists too, where you could go here, boom, boom, and you wanna stay stable when you bring that weight into your chest. But that fast rotation squeeze from an explosive manner, that's gonna increase your ab strength, your lower back strength, and even in through that posterior chain, which we talked about earlier in the video, and how that then leads to greater athleticism. I think it's important that we also touch on some tried and true movements that really, really work. And I think if we understand that more traditional movements are gonna be the bedrock that build that crazy amount of strength, that build that sheath of armor around the trunk, that then lead to that impulse expression. For lats, you can do rope climbs. Or you can do sled pulls. Ooh, there we go. You can hang from monkey bars or just traverse monkey bars. I think one of the unique parts about monkey bars is it's like a dynamic, explosive movement. So right here, we're in this isometric action, right? But then I can go there, I'm a little bit more explosive. And I'm moving, whoa, whoa. And I think about my lats and having a little bit better trunk control. And as we descend here, then I have to go back up, whew, there we go. That's gonna force me to be more coordinated and to be explosive, to have that trunk control, and to have very, very strong lats that can help stabilize when you're hanging there. That was my first run today, but if I did 2 or 3 more, I would probably have less swaying and a more stable shoulder because of the strength and the trunk control that actually is initiated by the strength of my backs from the lats. So that next exercise is going to be a top-down deadlift, and this is something that you can do at very, very heavy weights, or if you've got athletes that have a little bit weaker hamstrings and you really want to lengthen them rapidly. Now, you've got to be careful. I can hear the comments. You're gonna blow somebody's hamstring out. So do this with some type of reserve in the beginning. And what this is gonna look like is you get set here, okay? You come out, I get set, and I'm gonna go a little bit faster. Boom, on that eccentric. Boom, one more. Boom, and we can do like 5 sets of 5. The reason why I like doing the top down is that oftentimes it's a little bit easier to start with heavier weight from that top position. Again, 5 sets of 5 with a rapid eccentric. Next exercise is going to be a hater rows. Now, I like to call this a hater rows because some people be like, well, you're losing your back posture. Well, this isn't good form. But guess what? A lot of freaking really strong bodybuilders, a lot of powerlifters will do this. A lot of athletes will do this to increase their impulse from their lower back and even from their lats. It's gonna look like this here. Boom, boom, a little crank. Boom. Now, we wanna get set through the core, through the trunk here, and have a tight lower back, not just get completely out of position. So we've gotta be aware of that, but again, 5 sets of 5, 5 sets of 7, you can increase the load quite a bit when you go in with a little bit of English. Now, you can do reverse hypers for a stronger lower back, and I even think that there's a point of reverse hypers being a dynamic movement in some instances. Sometimes, if you do it really, really controlled, it's not gonna be as dynamic. But if you want to get a little bit more aggressive on the concentric and let that just fly on the eccentric, you're gonna have a rapid stretch shortening cycle. And remember, we gotta be flexing through that trunk as we do this. So we can get here, keep that long, dorsiflex the feet, boom, 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 boom. And you'll start to see and feel how that lower back can be explosive and tie that in with that posterior chain. 4 sets of 9, all the way up to 4 sets of 17. Traditional movements work. Don't ever abandon those exercises that are gonna be foundational. But the next movement we're gonna use as a traditional exercise with a little twist on it, and I guarantee you, you've never seen it before. Foundational lifts are absolutely imperative, but let's face it, there's some times that we should add a little bit of novelty. One, just to pique our curiosity, but two, to lead to some greater neural adaptations, which will help us increase our strength because we're becoming more coordinated. And one thing that our strength training app, Peak Strength, does so well is that we really do a great job of putting together a program that has those traditional movements along with some of those interesting, more unique movements. And you can see this in over 40 different sports. Football, we've got multiple positional programs. Wrestling, we got the program for you. Badminton, we've got it just for you. Anything else that you can think of is inside of Peak Strength. All you've got to do is head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength today. For those 7 free days of training, you're gonna get 1 week of 5 workouts to help you start that journey. Now, that's gonna take us into our next exercise, which, like we mentioned, you've probably never seen before. Now, this next movement I wanna see done from a dead stop position. And we've got jerk boxes that we're using here, but you could also use pins off a squat rack. You could use anything that's gonna change that range of motion that will still be stable. Now, remember, this is about explosive lower back movements, explosive back movements. What you would typically see would be a good morning off the boxes here. Boom, okay? Come back down, boom. Boom. Now, throw a couple different kickers in here. I'm gonna show you one. Boom. Now, we're getting freaking explosive. Here, boom, okay? Like 4 or 5 sets of 5, 4 or 5 sets of 7. Boom. And then another thing that you can do is make sure that you dust before you do something like that, is actually set up a riser, which can then increase that range of motion depending upon the weak point of somebody's lower back. Okay? So if somebody's lower back is pathetic, raise that up. If their mid back or upper back is a little bit weaker, then you can keep that lower. It could be here, boom. Okay? So use foundational movements, use explosive movements, use different exercises with that unique twist, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.